Hey guys, welcome to another MLS updater with me, Mike. Today we're going to talk about last year's champions, LAFC, and I have Gio Garcia with me today. Gio, how are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing good. Excited to talk some MLS with you. I'm glad we're making it overseas and abroad over there with you guys. So let's go ahead and do it.
Excellent, thanks so much. Before we kick off chatting about the team, let everyone know a little bit about yourself and where they can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, my name's Gio. So I cover we got two professional soccer football teams out here in LA. We got obviously the LA Galaxy, which I know a lot of people are very familiar with. Obviously David Beckham. And then LAFC, which Gareth Bale played like half a season. So I cover both teams. I'm in a unique position where I get to both teams. So I talk about the team, tweet about the teams. People can follow me at Gio Garcia LA.
Brilliant, thanks. And let's focus on those MLS Cup champions, Supporters Shield champions. It was one hell of a season to cover down there, and there's one player you've touched on just there, Gareth Bale, obviously announced his retirement recently, but what an incredible way to go out on club level with that equalising goal in the dying seconds.
Yeah. I mean that game was insane. I was there at that game live. I was moving around the stadium. I watched the goal, so it was insane. Because it was insane that Gareth Bale he always shows up in the big moments in the big games. So,
Yeah,
one thing that people probably won't remember or won't know, like leading up to that goal at Gareth Bale, to be quite honest, had kind of disappointed LAFC fans and just how he hadn't been able to play. I don't think he ever played the full 90 minutes. Just a lot of things was going on with Gareth Bell, and if there was one game for Gareth Bell to essentially have a significant moment, or
yeah,
significant game, it was in the final. And just with that game tying extra time goal, all his sins were forgiven. No one's gonna remember, how the season went. Everybody's gonna remember him as Gareth Bale, the MLS Cup champion, will
yeah,
help LAFC win. So I mean, that's what it matters, and big players step up at big moments, and that's why they got Gareth Bale. Look, they got him to help him win the MLS Cup, but no one would imagine in the what was like the 115th, 19th minute or whatever minute it was. That's the way he was going to help him out, just in dramatic fashion, just how he's done all in his career, just how he's done in Champions League, and
mm,
now he did it here in MLS. And to be honest with you, I was expecting to see Gareth Bale come back. I watched them. I watched Wales how they did, in the World Cup. And he looked like he was in rhythm and everything. I was like, okay, once it comes back to LAFC, but unfortunately, he had other plans. He
yeah,
was ready to retire. So it's insane. He went out the best way. Like I said, he went out the best way. To me, it was an honor just to be able to cover him these last 6 months or how many time it was. He made an impact with this team, and he made an impact with the league, because in the short amount of time that he was here with LAFC, he had the number one selling jersey in all MLS in that short amount of time.
yeah.
So you kind of see how big his name is, how big of an influence he was just in a short amount of time. So I mean, like I said, it was great to cover Gareth Bell and what he did with LAFC. He goes riding into the waves with all his trophies, and everybody in
Exactly.
MLS, everybody LAFC is gonna remember him.
Yeah, definitely. And he really seemed to fit in, like you say, and the whole group seemed to love him. He seemed to have a great time, and I think that was a big changing point for him as well. After so much time in Real Madrid, just hating football, it seemed like hating the experience he was going through, and a great way for him to end his career. And it's great for the club and MLS. And like you say, LAFC got that MLS Cup, and that's what they brought him in for. So seemed to really work out. But the defense now
Yeah,
starts.
yeah. Well, let me finish on that. You bring up a great point, because him coming from Real Madrid, he wasn't getting that playing time there.
Mm,
Obviously, with LAFC, they didn't necessarily need to depend on him, but like you could tell there was a shift in his demeanor, how he was actually enjoying the game again, and that's
yeah,
one of the things he was able to do with LAFC, because there was no necessarily pressure to come and perform for us right now. I think also some of his, now that I'm remembering, some of his he wasn't as capable as I think we thought all he was physically.
yeah,
I think he still had the back injuries were still kind of lingering in and out. And I think I'm assuming that that's what kind of also led to him to retire a lot sooner than we expected. because I don't think he wanted to go through another season. This is just my assumption to go through that
Yeah.
back and forth with those back injuries. And look, he goes out a champion, like I said before. But yeah, I did notice that he was enjoying playing football again, opposed to how he came and with Real Madrid.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely good to see. I think that really helped Wales out, getting a happy Gareth Bale coming in. Is obviously always going to do what he can for Wales, but yeah. So like we say, the defense of these titles now begins. A CONCACAF Champions League run starts soon as well. And there's been huge changes on this roster already. Let's talk about some of the incomings, and the biggest one, I guess, Aaron Long coming in at centre back on free agency. He looked like he had plenty of offers. There seemed to be reports of him getting close to agreeing with Seattle, and that would seem to be who sort of outsiders were projecting would be that his like the final landing spot for him. But as soon as LAFC sort of enter the conversation, it was done and dusted. And then you've got Aaron Long now to sort of help that back line, which wasn't, I mean, it wasn't the bad, but it wasn't the greatest back line in the league. Your attack and your midfield really was some of the most dangerous in the league. But adding Aaron Long now, that gives you a little bit extra in the back, I'd imagine.
Yeah, look, I think to me the addition to Aaron Long, look, also another team, the Galaxy, was also interested in him. You know, there was just a lot of interest for Aaron Long across the league. Look, he's a national team player. He was, he was getting looked at overseas in Europe as well. A couple teams were interested. And I think to me, I was shocked to find out that LAFC was gonna get him because there was so much interest that you didn't know. But look, it also helps out to when you're a champion and you win.
Yeah.
And right now, to me, LAFC is the most attractive team just on MLS. They were before because of the fan base and the type of culture that they did. But now you win an MLS Cup, you win Supporters Shield, you have the CONCACAF Champions League that's coming up here. You get to play more games. You have an opportunity to potentially play in the Club World Cup. Although all those things are attractive if you're a player in MLS and you have an opportunity to play in better weather because he's coming from New York. He's a Cali kid. He wants to come out here. Now there's another option, which is LAFC, which is the better club. They're the best team in the league. So all those factors, I'm assuming, kind of was a no-brainer. If you can get LAFC to, also be interested, then you kind of go with LAFC because that's what fits with you. That is definitely the number one option. And right now we're seeing the Galaxy, just in Los Angeles, they're the second option when players want to come and transfer and play here. Obviously, every case is different. Every case is different if you're a player that has opportunity, and also every roster is different as well. But this fits so well with what LAFC is doing because they didn't bring back Ibiaga. You have Giorgio Chiellini, but obviously Giorgio Chiellini is not going to give you these 90 minutes. You have Jesus Murillo, you have Eddie Segura, who's still not sure how he's going to be able to play this season. But I think adding Aaron Long to me, he's automatically going to be one of the starters. And look, LAFC is playing 50+ games with Leagues Cup, Champions League, the regular season. And you're gonna have a lot of rotation there, and you're gonna need a lot of depth, and that's what LAFC is doing.
Yeah, and like you say, that you need a lot of depth. Daniel Maldonado and Honduran defenders come in. And I guess the other big talking point is Steve Buick, who I assume I've pronounced his name right, hopefully so. A bit of a wonder kid out of Croatia, who I don't know a huge amount of, but there's been a lot of excitement around this signing. Have you been able to do a little bit of research on this player coming in, a wide attacking midfielder?
Look, to me, anytime I like seeing them on the field and see how they do in MLS play. I do look at the highlights and everything like that, and I think highlights are supposed to make you look good
Yeah.
and feel good and everything like that, right? You're supposed to look good in highlights. Not saying that he's not going to be an important signing or a significant signing. I usually just like to compare players because I know look from seeing some of these players that come from either overseas or come from South America. Even Chicho, it took him like about a month and a half to get his feet wet. So it's some of these players, it takes time. Other players like Denise Bouanga right off the get go. You know,
Yeah.
they're balling right off the get go. So there's gonna be a lot of competition for Stipe, but at the same time, like I said, there's so many games that he's gonna get an opportunity to play. He's gonna get an opportunity to play. There's gonna be an opportunity, I'm assuming, to start. So depending what he does on the wing, I want to see a couple games in, potentially some of the preseason games, and see what he's really about. Because I already know what Mahala's about. I already know, you know, what Chicho Rango, Buanga. Like I said, I already know. Obviously, Carlos Vela. I already know what those guys are about. Those guys can
Mm.
play, and I think when LAFC brings a player like that, and you know, it's gonna be a depth piece. I'm very excited to see, because he's gonna get those opportunities. So I'm gonna wait and see how he does, and then go from there.
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing with it is obviously, yeah, you need the depth to compete on all these games that you're gonna like the club are gonna come up against. But one of those players you obviously mentioned there, Mahalo Apoku, appears to be getting interest from around MLS. Sort of like the Tom Bogut tweets come out saying there's guaranteed interest in this player, and we spoke about depth, like bringing a player. Is losing a player like a Poku going to be a really big deal, because it's in a area of the field where you're actually quite well stocked, and you would have liked to have been, and you would like to carry on being well stocked in 2023. Is there concerns about losing a Poku, because he had a great impact when he got minutes last year?
Yeah, look, and Poco was the number one option off the bench. He was ahead of Gareth
Yeah.
Bell, because just Gareth Bell was in and out of rhythm. To me, Mahala, I don't see how they let him go this year unless they get in
Mm.
a ridiculous amount somewhere overseas. I think trying to let him go through within the MLS, just to me, would not make any sense.
No.
Even if you get like the record or whatever you can within the league, I think a player like a Poku, you hold on to it and you continue to develop, because he's going to be one of those signings that's going to make you a lot of money, and I think LAFC know that. So I think to me, you know, I would be shocked if Mahala goes within any other MLS team, but I would not be
Mm.
shocked if he goes overseas, or he goes to another club somewhere in Europe, or potentially down south in South America, because a player like Mahala, what he's done and how he's been able to affect the game, you know, whether they ask him to start or whether they ask him to come off the bench, he's a player that loves, embraces his role. He also understands, you know, Buanga is ahead of him. No one's starting over Carlos Vela. You know what I'm saying? You got Chicho Arango, but at times we did see Mahala start over Chicho. We did see Mahala come in earlier for Carlos Vela and just give him a different flavor. And one thing that I really like about Mahala's game, on the way he does, he really high presses a lot, and he has the engine and the motor
Yeah.
to do that. Because you know, he's a youngster out of all of them. Like I said, I don't see him moving anywhere in the MLS, but if it's overseas, I definitely see a possibility there.
Yeah, I get yeah, I agree with you. I'd be really surprised to see him leave when like we say, with these matches and the impact that he has coming off the bench, rotating when he needs to start. Whether he comes on the pitch in this, like the first minute, the 75th minute, he starts and plays exactly the same. It's not like he takes a little while to get going when he's given a start and he has to fill in. It's just natural.
Yeah, and he was my most. I enjoyed watching him. He was the player I enjoyed the most. Look, I know LFC has a number of players, a number of stars, but to me, he was the most exciting player. To him and Chicharanga were the most exciting players to me, just because I've seen his development, you know, just off of that, and just what he could potentially be. So I was always excited to watch. He always had memorable goals and a couple outside the 18. And it was just a fun player to watch.
Definitely, definitely. Like the other one that's come in, Jakupovic, an experienced goalkeeper. Has plenty of time around Europe. Recently just left, come from Everton. As backup goalie there. He's played in Hull. Um, he seems to have been brought in as McCarthy's not. Who had his heroics in the penalty shootout in the MLS Cup, not seen as like a real starter, I guess. If in LAFC going into next season, because we're still going to be waiting quite a while for Crepo to regain fitness after that horrific injury that he unfortunately went through during the MLS Cup final. Is there would you say for this club now, like, they know that this early part of the season, the playoffs are an incredibly realistic target. So you don't need to go big on a new goalkeeper to make sure that you don't lose ground. You think just get someone with a little bit of experience in should just really cover this until Crepeau's back.
Yeah, look, just even obviously we saw how the final went. I think also just we also saw how John McCarthy stepped up. He stepped up in the biggest game, and within what he only played probably like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I mean, obviously the PKs. We saw a little bit of John McCarthy. He had some solid games in the regular season, those limited games that he played, but we didn't really know much about John McCarthy. We got to know John McCarthy in the MLS Cup final, how he stepped up, how mentally prepared he was, and everything. I got to talk to John McCarthy a few days after they won the MLS Cup. They did the parade, and he told me this story that right before Maxime Crepeau got injured, he started to warm up. He started letting his coach know. He's like, "Hey, if we go to PKs, will you guys use me? Because I guess in practice or whatever, he is the better keeper when it comes to PKs."
Yeah.
So they're like, wait, we'll see if they make the sub before obviously before the injury. And as soon as Maxime Crepeau got injured and they knew about that, that's when but John was already mentally prepared, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
He was already mentally prepared that he may get an opportunity to play. And that's who he is, and that's what I got to learn. Like, this guy was ready for that moment. He's been on the bench, being on the bench and trying to be ready for the amount of games that they played last season. And you'll get a game or two here and then just being the backup keeper, but that to me just spoke volumes of who he is and how mentally prepared he is to come in and step up. So I see John McCarthy as, but there is going to be a competition there. But I personally see him going for the starting. He's going to be the starter. He has a high opportunity to be the starter. And then Djokovic could be, the backup, or potentially, we'll see how it is if Djokovic has a good preseason or whatever. Because I did get a talk to Djokovic about a week ago or so. They did an introductory press conference.
Yeah.
He's a very tall keeper. He's very fit. He's been saying, he told me that he's been trying to come to the MLS for like the last 3 seasons. It just
Okay.
didn't work out.
Yeah.
His wife is actually American, so that's part of the reason why he was trying to come. He was trying to come out here. But there is going to be competition, and I know one thing about LAFC: they love to have competition,
Yeah.
even if it's at even if it's at the keeper position. Every position, I would say every position except Vela's position, is up for grabs. But yeah, like, I think it's gonna be, and you're gonna need Djokovic with these 50 plus games.
Yeah.
You're gonna need both of them. And even when Crepeau comes back, you never know how good that leg is gonna be. So you're gonna have to have both of these keepers really, really healthy. And I think them signing Djokovic, LAFC signing Djokovic, is a smart signing. We expected a new goalkeeper signing, but I wasn't expecting someone to come overseas. But yeah, I'm excited to see how many games he gets to play and he's able to produce for LAFC.
Yeah, because you don't want to be in a point where you're rushing back Crepeau from such a bad injury. You want to just
Exactly.
give him the full amount of time to recover, get himself confident again. Like, I can only imagine what it must be like to step out on the field again after that injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you got to give him some time. It's a useful addition, and some not much needed depth and competition, like you said, is always important. Um, let's look at three other players who have left. Sevas Mendes, who didn't have the biggest impact last year, but we saw how good he could be at the World Cup. He's
Yeah.
gone to Sao Paulo in Brazil. Latif Blessing has gone to New England. And I guess one of the big ones, I guess for me, was Franco Escobar. The right back's gone to Houston, so it's left a big hole there for you guys. Is that something you were aware of, that there was understanding that this was going to happen, he was going to be moving on, or is this a bit of a surprise around the club?
To be honest, Franco Escobar was also one of those players that was in and out of the lineup because of injury, just certain things, just at times form. Ryan Holmeshead, who was in competition with them for most of the time, he's the one that got the start. And then if I don't think Franco Escobar got to play in the final, if I recall. Yeah, Franco Escobar didn't even play in the final. It is a depth piece that was for LAFC. But to be honest with you, I don't think they're gonna miss him because he wasn't the starter, but he did have the talent. He did have the
Yeah.
talent when he was healthy. We did see him go up and down the flank. He had the speed, but at times he just wasn't healthy. So I think if it was a Ryan Hollingshead who was moving on, they'd be like, yes, they're in a little bit of trouble trying to find a right back because right now LAFC just has to look for a right back replacement.
Yeah.
They just need to add a depth piece, and I think it's a little different when you're adding a depth piece opposed to being the main guy. Unfortunately, Franco Escobar at one point during the season he was the main right back, but then quickly Ryan Hollingshead ended up beating him out for that. Ryan Hollingshead just had more opportunities to score goals. I think that really is what
Yeah.
separates. He scored a lot of goals this
Yeah.
season
So
with that mustache and everything, signature mustache. And he was just really able to gel and do things defensively, and probably didn't have the speed that Franco Escobar does, but he was able just to fit in perfectly with what LAFC did. So
mm,
I think they are going to miss Franco Escobar a little bit. Just he's a very talented player, but I think they can get something out in the market, something out in the MLS, or even somewhere abroad or whatever. They can bring another right back because it wasn't the starting player, and he didn't even
yeah.
play in the final.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And if it's someone that is keen to go off and get first team football, then you're not gonna be held hostage to what they demand. Maybe if you're not really keen on
Exactly.
like, like 100% sure on them. There's two players who are still their futures are sort of up in the air at the moment. Cifuentes, who's been a really big part of the side last year, and Christian Teo, the winger that came in last year, as to whether they're staying or going. Have you heard any more about those? I guess there's expectation that Cifuentes will be leaving with the amount of sort of rumors going around him for the last about year now.
Yeah, honestly I thought he was leaving. I thought he was leaving to Brighton. I think that was the club that he was getting linked to.
Yeah, I've seen
And
links with him, but still just seems to be rumors now, so it's quite hard to know
yeah,
what's.
I thought he was leaving. I don't think he played that much in the World Cup. Mendes was the player that we really got to see to play. Look, if Cifuentes leaves, he deserves to leave. He gets that opportunity. But as of now, with all these transfers and everything, maybe Brighton might have fallen through. I'm not too sure. But if it doesn't work out for his transfer, I don't think him coming back to LAFC would be a bad idea for him. And because they still got Elias Sanchez, they still got Kellen Acosta. That would be one of the strongest midfields. But to me, he's shown a lot of development in this last season. What Cifuentes was able to do offensively, defensively, he's grown a lot. Jose Cifuentes was one of the players that when he was first coming with LAFC, he was a little shy, he was a little timid. In this season, he really grew up a lot. He really grew up a lot. He really stepped up his role. And I think also that with the coaching change with Steve Cherundolo, what he did, just him being a more of a vocal player. He at times he did have some passes that were kind of questionable, but then you would see him come in and have an amazing assist, Carlos Vela or
Mm.
Chicho. And this season, this past 2022 season, you saw him mature and everything. So I'm a little surprised he didn't get picked up, or he hasn't gotten picked up until what is it, January 18th,
Yeah,
is the day
so
of this
still a bit of
recording.
time.
But yeah, there's still some time to see if he ends up staying or ends up going. But yeah, he's definitely one of those players that is definitely there on the clock, and we'll see what happens. As of now, I haven't heard anything as of yet. We'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening with them.
Yeah, and he's definitely a very talented player. So it's going to be there's always going to be interest there, you'd imagine. So it's just trying to find the right deal for all parties, isn't it? I guess, and at least knowing this in advance, getting you with things taking time, then I guess LAFC have got time to set their plans in motion to like how they want to replace him going forward. Um, one of the biggest crazy things to imagine throughout last season, like towards the end of last season and going in now, is Chicho Arango, and whether he's even going to stay with the side. He said he wants a new contract. And you'd imagine with the goals he scores and the quality he has, LAFC would have just gone, "Yep, here you go. This is fantastic. We've got one of the best centre forwards in the league." But there's just constant rumours of him maybe moving away. And why is this happening in LA?
Look, he's a player that's delivered, and he's a player that, I would say for a majority of the last season, if it wasn't for him, LAFC probably wouldn't be in the situation that they were. He was a player that was able to score these goals and have a solid season for LAFC. He did a lot for them, and to
Mm,
me, usually when a player asks for a salary increase or anything, asks for money, you kind of see him. You're like, well, why are you asking for money? But to me,
yeah,
this part, he deserves it. He's
yeah,
getting paid. Let me see. Last season, his full guaranteed compensation was 683,000. It shows here in the 2022 MLS
mm,
players salaries guide. He's overplayed. He's overplayed
mm,
overplayed his contract. When a player typically overplays his contract, that means that he's scoring goals, he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's going above and beyond. To me, 683,000. We know Chicho's worth more.
yeah,
He knows he's worth more, and I think at this stage in his career, he knows that. Look, hey, this is where I need to get paid, and I don't think he's doing anything bad or anything like that. He's shown his worth to me,
mm,
and I think I actually most of the time I'm like, man, what are you doing? But this time I'm like, yeah, go ahead and get your money if you can
yeah,
get your money. But I think with that, if LAFC can't find room to pay him or anything like that, then if he decides to go with another club around the MLS that I think could play him DP, designated money,
exactly.
a franchise type of player. If
Yeah,
LAFC don't want to give him that franchise tag, which they have the opportunity that they could do, give him that franchise tag. Look, there's two things going on. Chicho wants more money. There's an opportunity to be a designated player. LAFC has opportunity to make a designated player. They can potentially save money if they don't give him.
yeah,
there's just a lot of things. But I think there's a little bit of a little chess match or whatever, or maybe they're ironing on the details. Who knows? Maybe by next week he
mm,
becomes a DP player or he moves on. But I think what Chicho has done, he's shown his worth. He's
yeah,
shown everybody tell it from the get go when he first started. He was even in that, what was it, the 2021 season, which they didn't have a good season. They For the games that they won, and it was because of his goals and everything he did. I think last season or his first season he scored about like close to 15 goals.
mm,
Last season he scored 18 goals. It says right here, and he had 4 assists. Um, yeah, he's worth more. He's worth more, and I think if you're Chicho, you kind of have to go out there and get your money. And if it's not with LAFC, I think he understands that. He's worth whatever he does, whatever he's able to get.
yeah,
From any MLS club. It's now as if the only thing I think I would say is at least go to a contender if you can.
yeah, yeah,
If you can within MLS, because there's quite a few teams that could use a number 9. To me, on the other side, if you LAFC and you like Chicharo, I think
mm,
it would be a very a difficult player to replace. I know they play a lot with the wings, but sometimes you do need that true number 9, and
yeah.
Chicho is that true number 9
And
and
he
gives you
gives
a
the
different
wingers the
perspective.
space. Like
Gives
the
them the
defenders have to
space.
watch him. He's so dangerous in the
Yes.
box, and that gives those wide
Yeah.
players the space. And I find like sometimes Vela is brought in, like Chicho is given rested, and Vela goes in the middle, and
Yeah.
it just loses a lot of what Vela can
It's not
give.
the
He's
same.
so good off the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
and cutting in,
He's so
and
good, and he's a physical body.
mm,
He gives you what a 9 is supposed to do. Just everything. He's a solid number 9. I think if LAFC don't find a way to pay him, or aren't able, if he moves on, I think it would, in my opinion, I think it would be a mistake on LAFC,
mm,
because you do have the opportunity to pay him and give him what potentially he wants, unless it's something insane. Um, but if he's also getting looked overseas and wants to move overseas, you just got to. I think a player like Chicho is a player, he's in a position to determine his future. So if
yeah,
it's with the LAFC, I think it'd be amazing. If it's not, I know he loves LA. I know he loves
yeah,
LAFC and everything. So I want him to stay. I enjoy watching him play. But for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. I think LAFC are really, really going to miss him, especially with all these games that they're playing this season. They're definitely going to need him. They're going to need his goals,
yeah,
his goals and assists and his presence there. Even if you go try it and go get another number 9 and, try to get him adjusted to the system and how he plays, I think there's just a lot going on there. You gotta wait for the player to get adjusted, get to know his teammates and all these different things to try to trade in a number 9 for a number 9 if you can pay him. I
Yeah,
think it makes sense.
definitely. And he doesn't seem to be over asking to stay in LA. I think if he'd take a decent deal there, but teams like
Yeah,
Atlanta
another, and
are
if
in
you pay
need of
him
a center
another
forward.
like if you double his salary, you pay him 1.2 or 1.5, whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure how much he sees his value now. If he sees himself as a 3-4 million player, then
Yeah.
it gets a little tricky there. Even I think even too, but look, you try to ask for as much as you can. But yeah, I think a no brainer, easy to double his salary, pay him 1.2, 1.5, no brainer. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think once you start getting at 2 or 3 million, then I think that's where it gets interesting because other teams like, hey, come to our MLS team, we'll pay you $3-4 million. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of money. That's just a lot of money. And you're worth it. So
Yeah.
it's just how the game goes.
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm assuming there's going to be quite a few moves coming up in these next couple of weeks as we talk about the depth issues and sort of just to round this up, podcast up. How do you think the LAFC are going to be approaching this season? Obviously, CCL is going to be a massive impact, and they've got Leagues Cup and the regular season. Is there going to have to be a lot of work to go into this to make sure the squad's deep enough to compete on all three levels?
Yeah, look, I think LAFC's been working since, I don't know how much time John Thornton in the front office got from winning the MLS Cup. Maybe, they got to watch the World Cup and everything. But I think, you saw the signings, four big significant signings that they added. And I think they're still going to be able to add more players. And like I said, the one thing that they have, they're attractive now. Now they're on a global stage because of Gareth Bale. People are going to familiarize themselves where you're from and different places in Europe.
Yeah.
LAFC, because a lot of people get them confused with LA Galaxy because so I think there is now LAFC has a global presence. I would say maybe you can speak on that a little bit more, but I think they're the number one one of the I would say the number one team if you have the opportunity to play for would be LAFC. Obviously, it also depends, how much they can offer you, but I think with everything they're doing, them being able to attract players and the right type of players, in a sense, would be an easier process from a few years ago. Now you talk about the 50+ games that they're going to play. I would. You try to say that you want to prioritize everything, but I think Champions League, if you have an opportunity to go to a club or club, you try to prioritize that's just me. That's just myself speaking the way I would think about it, right?
Yeah.
With all these games,
Yeah.
but I think Leagues Cup when the season's gonna, the both Liga MX and the MLS is gonna completely stop and play. Obviously, you want to have your best players healthy and ready for that. So I would say Champions League, Leagues Cup, and I hate to say it this way, then MLS would be third, but
Yeah.
if you're trying to prioritize things, obviously you want to compete in every single one. But I think what you can do in Champions League puts your club and your organization in a different tier. We see what the Seattle
Yeah.
Sounders are doing. They're playing in Leagues Cup. I mean, they're playing in the Club World Cup. Because
Yeah.
they won the Champions League, the CONCACAF Champions League. So yeah, there's so many things to do. I'm very interested to see how they do it and how they prioritize that because there's such a big opportunity for LAFC this season. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of
No.
games,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch how they maneuver this.
Yeah, it'll be hard to imagine them being Supporters Shield champions again. I think, like you say, maybe
Yep,
with
supporter
such a
shield. Yeah.
long season, I could imagine, and the large playoff format, I can imagine the regular season, they can feel quite confident in making sure they'll make the
As long as
end
you
of the
make the
season.
playoffs, I think you'll
Exactly.
be fine. You
Yeah.
get potentially, you want to be one of the top four to get a home field advantage.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad. You don't have to go for supporter shield this season.
No. Brilliant. And I guess, like you say, it's becoming easier to sign with big club, and it's quite I imagine, very difficult to turn down and move to LA as well. So,
Yeah, we gotta get out. I
Gio,
mean, we finally got the sun today,
oh
even though it's been
yeah,
raining for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, we get good weather from most of the year, especially here in January when it's not, in other parts of the world in the country it's like snowing, you got
Yeah.
snowstorms and stuff like that.
Gio, thanks so much for giving up some time. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this roster and their moves in the Champions League, especially. Remind everyone where they can find you on Twitter before we go.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Gio Garcia LA, and people can listen to my podcast. It's LA Soccer Hub. I talk about the teams and what's going on here in LA. Just give my thoughts and what I'm seeing. So yeah, definitely check out LA Soccer Hub, but also on social media as well. So yeah, man, I appreciate the invite. I'm excited that the MLS is growing over there as well, and being able to chat with you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. And we'll get this tweeted out. We'll copy in all the links so everyone can follow along for this 2023 season. And hope you have a great time covering it.
Yeah, of course. No, I appreciate it, man.